One of the more impressive stats in the NFL currently is that a certain head coach has never finished a season below 500, dating all the way back to 2007. No, it's not Bill Belichick or even Sean Payton, but it's actually Mike Tomlin. The Steelers have gone 8-8 or better in every season since 2007, and quite honestly, it's astounding how long they've been able to keep up that impressive streak. Despite some Ben Roethlisberger injuries as well, they found a way to remain consistent throughout all the adversity. Even last year at one point, the Steelers had the best record in football about 3 quarters through the regular season. It was an 11-0 start, and they were the last team remaining undefeated in 2020. But then things went south for them, and really fast. Their offense the final 6 games was downright disappointing, and some may say terrible. Throughout the regular season, they really could not run the ball at all in 2020. James Conner, who was their lead back, was often banged up, and the team ran for 3.6 yards per attempt behind the 31st ranked offensive line according to PFF. Now, in terms of passing the ball, they managed to be pretty effective the first 12 weeks. They only threw for 6.5 yards per attempt, which is low, but they were looking quote-unquote good enough, and so was Ben Roethlisberger coming off elbow surgery. But from weeks 13 to 17, everything seemed to go backwards in their passing offense. It was almost as if things were too predictable, which is definitely possible for a team that did not want to stretch the field and go deep. Now, thanks to NFL Game Pass getting rid of coaches film, it will be harder to show examples, but I'll try to put clips throughout this video showing some of their offensive struggles late in the season. Now, keep in mind, one of those games late in the season was quarterbacked by Mason Rudolph, but 4 games were still under Big Ben. But the final 5 weeks of the season, the Steelers' passing offense got worse in these areas: turnover percentage, yards per attempt, completion percentage, quarterback rating, and many other stats as well. Some drop-offs were more drastic than others, but overall the losses started piling up quickly. Now, fortunately for the Steelers, they had an 11-0 start and finished 12-4, which overall is a great record obviously, but that record has a lot of context attached to it based on how the final month went. If you include the playoffs, the Steelers finished 2020 season going 1-5 the final 6 games, and they definitely had their noticeable deficiencies on offense. But the Pittsburgh Steelers were in an awkward position heading into this 2021 offseason. They are too talented to start selling their players for draft picks and start an all-out rebuild, but also not bad enough where they should be entertaining that idea. And all of this falls on the 39-year-old arm of Ben Roethlisberger, which obviously makes this even more scary based on how he played the final 5 games. But ultimately, the Steelers brought Ben back, made him take a pay cut, and they're all in for one more year with Roethlisberger as their quarterback. The days of the killer bees are over, but they still have a few young and talented weapons on offense that will make their veteran quarterback's life easier. And it's not like last year's struggles were all on Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, for instance, the Steelers receivers led the AFC in drops last year, which definitely does not help, and playing behind an offensive line that was ranked 31st in the NFL for a 38-year-old quarterback that could not move too well was definitely not helping either. Of course, the breakouts of Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson were well timed, and the Steelers also spent a first-round pick this year on running back Naji Harris. Harris is a super talented back that can do it all. The only area he really lacks in is elite speed, but he makes up for it in every other area, including receiving. And if I had to guess, I think Harris will feast this year and put up monster numbers, but I still have my issues taking running backs in the first round in 2021, especially for a team like the Steelers who have a quarterback near 40 and a tons of holes on their offensive line. As a Giants fan, I saw my own team do this back in 2018. Although Saquon Barkley was taken way earlier and the draft pick for Harris was not nearly as egregious, there are some parallels like a declining quarterback and a bad offensive line. But anyway, for a team that had limited cap space entering this offseason, it was going to be hard to retain all of their guys, and the Steelers definitely lost a ton of talent this offseason. Here's a list of who the Steelers lost just this offseason alone. Center Marquise Pouncey to retirement, outside linebacker Bud Dupree to the Titans, linebacker Avery Williamson still remains a free agent, left tackle Alejandro Villanueva went to the Ravens, right guard David DeCastro was released and could possibly retire, Matt Filer went to the Chargers, their slot corner Mike Hilton went to the Bengals, their outside corner Steven Nelson went to the Eagles recently, and running back James Conner went to the Cardinals. Overall, that's 9 starters gone from last year, which is a massive hit. And we're not just talking average starters, some of these guys are legit Pro Bowl and All-Pro caliber players. Now, as for the expectations for the Steelers offensive line in 2021, well, they're not good. Pro Football Network has them projected last in the league, The Huddle ranks them 27th, FTN Fantasy ranks them 32nd, and PFF ranks them 31st. Now, of course, miracles happen and an offensive line can greatly outperform their expectations, but you're also not wrong to assume the Steelers may have a lot of problems up front. But here's some hope for Steelers fans. Last year, the Washington football team's offensive line had very little expectations. They were a bottom 5 unit heading into 2020, and they finished ranked 6th overall by PFF, so it can happen. Now, if the Steelers' offensive line does play poorly as expected, then how can this team realistically survive on offense? They got rid of their offensive coordinator Randy Fichtner after 3 seasons and brought in Matt Canada, who was the Steelers' quarterback coach in 2020. On the bright side, he does have familiarity with the team, but on the downside, he may implement some of the same quick passing concepts that we previously saw last year. But that may be the only choice the Steelers have in terms of a passing offense, which is disappointing and depressing, honestly. Ben Roethlisberger built what is a Hall of Fame career on extending plays, bouncing off defensive linemen, launching the ball downfield, but he clearly does not have it in him anymore. You can't just tell Ben, yeah, go out there and do what you did the first 15 years of your career, because he probably can't physically do it anymore. Now, while this was a product of the offense as well, Ben Roethlisberger did get rid of the ball faster than any quarterback in the league last year. According to Next Gen Stats, Roethlisberger had the least amount of time to throw in 2020. On average, he had only 2.3 seconds to throw the ball. But with that came a lack of big plays and explosive plays. The Steelers' offense ranked 26th in the NFL in explosive play percentage at 11.7%. And if you use a stat called quick passes, 67.4% of Roethlisberger's 2020 passes were considered quick passes, which are passes that are thrown within 2.5 seconds after the ball is snapped. Overall, I'm just concerned about this team, and things can get ugly fast if number 7 and the offensive philosophy does not change too much. Most of this video has discussed the offense, but we shouldn't discount them losing 4 starters on defense as well. They still have TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, Stephon Tuitt, Minka Fitzpatrick, and others, but losing that many guys can hurt, especially in your secondary. Their pass defense got off to a nice start in 2020, just like the offense. But in the final 5 weeks of the season, they allowed an 88 passer rating and 6.2 yards per attempt. It wasn't horrible, but got noticeably worse as the season went on. And as for their division, let's just call it how it is. They are the 3rd best team on paper in the AFC North right now. Yes, you have to play the games and anything can happen on any given Sunday, but the Browns roster and even the Ravens roster is better up and down for sure in my mind. Now, if Pittsburgh played in the AFC South or even NFC East, then maybe I'd give them a better chance of having a good season, but their division plus playing a schedule of a team that finished first last year does not help. And if you look at strength of schedule heading into 2021, the Steelers have the hardest projected schedule right now. The Steelers' opponents' combined record for last year is 155, 115, and 2, which is a 57 winning percentage, and right now is the toughest in 2021. Now, injuries happen and things can change, but that definitely does not help make a good case for the Steelers in 2021. The Steelers' win total right now is 9, which would put them at 9-8, of course, and would keep Mike Tomlin's 500 and above streak alive. But I'm making my prediction now, and I will say they do not reach 9 wins this year. I don't think they'll be an awful team, but 7 or 8 wins is not out of the realm of possibility for me. Now, Ben Roethlisberger claims he feels better than last year, so maybe he starts looking like his old self, but Father Time catches up to everybody. And for a guy who has been in retirement rumors a lot the past few years, you wonder how much he really has left. Steelers president Art Rooney was recently quoted saying that there is a possibility of Ben Roethlisberger coming back for 2022, but I think we should get out of 2021 first before bringing that up. But this team is still strong in certain areas like wide receiver, safety, and especially defensive line, but some other position groups like cornerback, offensive line, linebacker, and quarterback have some serious questions. Everybody hopes to end their career riding out into the sunset on a high note and winning a championship, but that's usually not how it goes. The John Elway and Peyton Manning type endings are unfortunately outliers. If Ben were able to come back, look rejuvenated, and leave with his 3rd ring, it would be a great storyline, but in reality, we probably will not see that. Now, I know all Pittsburgh fans are a passionate bunch and you should expect a good team, so if that's the case, then you can look at this video and say what Mike Tomlin once said.
We do not care